Colleagues, we are continuing today, and we focus on science and scientific research. I'm again wanting to introduce myself as Konanani Korombi. On this workshop, our focus would be on the understanding of the meaning of science, the meaning of scientific knowledge, concept of scientific research, and the types of scientific research. In summary, this is what we'll be going through. We would have a number of slides, but we could then compartmentalize them or divide them into 4 sections. I want to dispel a notion that there are specific people or persons or qualified professors or qualified doctors who understand research, and that other people do not understand research. And I say this precisely because I want to make sure that researchers should not fear themselves. They should have confidence on themselves that what they read and what they understand is what they should stand for. So when you write something and you're making an explanation, or you choose a specific design for the research project, you should motivate that with the use of the relevant literature. And I always emphasize that if you do that, there is no professor, there is no doctor, there is no researcher who's going to move you. Because research is about studies, it's about reading, it's about learning and explaining. And in the process, you make choices, because you would have a number of approaches, a number of designs that are there available for us to use. So we, as researchers, should be able to make a choice. And on Tuesday, we indicated that our choice of the approach or the research method is mainly dictated by the research question. So your research question is in line with the research topic. So if you answer the research question correctly, then you are actually addressing the research topic. And I think somewhere next month, we will also have a specific presentation on a research topic. So you can see how you streamline. Actually, along the way, we have to make sure that whatever we do is streamlined. From the research topic, the problem statement, the purpose statement, the research objectives, research questions, so that when we go out, we are well informed, we are at tangent. We actually are able to respond to the research objectives and achieve the purpose of the study. So that is what should happen. And all this happens, this alignment happens when we study. And then we stand and we motivate. So these are the introductory remarks that I would want to make. And so don't feel scared to raise up your voice and be confident. But if we can just start, colleagues, we said we're going to look at science and scientific research. Here, we have to describe what science is. And that is why the first statement is just a question on what science is. And to some, science refers to difficult high school or college level courses such as physics, chemistry, and biology, meant only for the highest, for the brightest students. You will remember that schools, secondary schools, have got these streams that are there available for us. And when somebody is doing history, is doing geography, we think, oh, this person is doing general science, is doing a general, it's a general stream. But when somebody does physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, we think somebody is doing a science stream. So this is a simplest way in which we can consider science to be. Or how other people or some of us understand science to be. And people are not wrong to take physics as part of science, chemistry as part of science, and biology as part of science, because these are not only studied at secondary level. You can continue with them at universities, tertiary institutions. The majority of them offer scientific streams. Now, but to others, science is a craft practiced by scientists in white coats using specialized equipment in their laboratories. And this is a repetition, because this is the same statement that I mentioned on Tuesday, and that the people that are working in laboratories, and most of them put on white jackets. And I've seen even students in some of the universities, when they go to the lab, they put on a white coat. So this has become a custom, and something that people are accustomed to, used to, that when I go to laboratory, I'll put on that jacket. But when I made an example and mentioned this statement, I also made reference to equipment that are used, laboratory equipments, whether it is a microscope or a tube. What are those glass tubes? I just forgot them. Pincers and all those equipment that are used there in the lab. So people handling those are the ones that we consider as scientists, and therefore we think that they're involved in a scientific process, research, or scientific observation, or experiments. But the word science is derived from the Latin word scientia, meaning knowledge. And I'm not sure of this, but this is what the author says. Science refers to a systematic and organized body of knowledge in any area of inquiry that is acquired using the scientific method. Now, this is how the author has described science. And science can be grouped into two broad categories. We've got natural sciences and we've got social sciences. And these, the majority of us should be familiar with. People coming from science colleges might understand what natural science is. And people coming from other colleges would also understand what social science is. There are a number of colleges. You fall under various types of colleges. And all of you can claim that we are conducting research, scientific research, under the Department of Law, under the Department of Statistics, the Department of Agricultural and Natural Sciences, the Department of Education, and any other department under the University of South Africa. But you would agree that I conduct a scientific research. Then we want to look at these categories, natural science and social sciences. Let's just look at what natural science is. And this is the science which is considered is the science of naturally occurring objects or phenomena, such as light, objects, matter, earth, celestial bodies, referring to space science, or the human body. All of these is what can be grouped under natural sciences. All of them, most of them that I've referred to here in this statement are appearing in nature. Light is a natural phenomenon. Earth is a natural phenomenon. Then falls under environmental sciences. Celestial bodies, space science, and science that has to do with meteorology. This has to do with natural aspect, because meteorology has to do with weather, and weather has to deal with rain, the winds, and so forth, and water. So natural sciences can be further classified into physical science, earth science, life sciences, and others. These are the subcategories. But physical sciences consist of disciplines such as physics, chemistry, and astronomy. is. We just described what natural science is. We did not describe what social science is. But in most instances and in most time in these workshops, we would be dealing with a qualitative research, which mainly belongs to social science. Now here, we want to talk about what research is. And depending on who you ask, you will likely get very different answers to this seemingly innocuous question. Some people will say that they routinely research different online websites to find the best place to buy goods or services they want. We're going to try and describe research, and later on we'll try to understand what is scientific research. It means we will also be able to describe what is science. So you merge science and research, you find scientific research. So this is another example of how people take research as. Some people will say that they research different online websites. You remember what we do when we enter into the websites, when we go into the Google, or is it Sabinet or Science Direct? There, we are actually conducting research. And if you want to buy food, I've seen from my cell phone, I received some messages from Uber Eats. So saying that we are selling food like this and that and that. So there are other sites such as the Pick n Pay sites where they also can advertise what they sell. Woolworth also advertise what they sell. And if you are interested, sometimes you get into their sites and see what is available there. Then it prepares you to order online, or you can walk into the store to go and collect. But the most important aspect is you have first done your research. You have investigated to establish where these things are offered or where they are sold. So some other people say that that is research, and we don't know if that is scientific research. Television news channels supposedly conduct research in the form of viewer polls on topics of public interest, such as forthcoming elections or government-funded projects. And here I make reference to the polls or the general elections that we had last year in 2024. And there were a number of parties that were competing. You had EFF, MK Party, ANC, and today, as we speak, colleagues. I do not want to make reference to this later statement. I'll talk about it a little bit later. But colleagues, if you go to the TV channels, you find something about the political parties, and you find reference to the polls that are made. Now, if I retract a little bit and say something about Donald Trump, is that since he came into office, some of the American researchers, I don't know if it is the poll people, have been trying to investigate and to establish if his support is still as strong as when he came to office for the second time. And some might report, no, it seems it's falling down a little bit, or it seems people are asking these things. They're asking the challenges in terms of the economy. Moodley, for an example, that has investigated the status of the economy of the USA, have recently been reported to have downgraded America to a lower status in terms of its economic stability. So these things can only be found, and this information can only be found from the web, online. When you open, sometimes when I'm using my computer, I see some blogs coming out. That is where I noted what is said about Trump. And I'll show you something that I've seen this morning that appeared into my screen, which is quite interesting. But all of these, we are saying, if you go into the internet and you are looking for the information, similar information, then you are conducting research. Undergraduate students research the internet to find the information they need to complete assigned projects or term papers. You've got specific search engines at the University of South Africa. I don't know if you have got access to Science Direct, but there is PubMed, Google Scholars, just generic, and ResearchGate. All of these are the search engines, and these can be used not only by the undergraduate students, but even the postgraduate students. Most of the researchers are getting the information from these search engines. And for you to be able to use these search engines, access is via registration in most of them, except Google Scholar. And I also read some of the articles from the ResearchGate without even having registered. But when you conduct search, then it is then called research. The good thing that search and research is more or less the same thing. But colleagues, there is a difference of how you search. You may conduct research today and on how we conducted research in the past. When I compiled my first research project, I did not have access to the internet. And what I did was to walk direct into the library, and my search was on physical books, on physical literature from the shelves. If you go to UNISA, the East Library there, they still have physical books. And there, they would have ordered them accordingly. When you want books about humanities, you want books about administration, about leadership, books about plants, books about the natural environment, water, ecosystem, about economics, about the law. These are packaged nicely for you to be able to use. But what I was doing was to search, to do literature search, because if I find an interesting book, I would actually first look at the title of the book, then I would pick that one, go sit down and look for what I want to do. If I want to study in the library, but if I didn't want to study in the library, then I borrow the book so I can return them when I've finished. But reading from the book, I'm doing I'm searching. Going into the library, looking for a book, I'm also searching. Graduate students working on research projects for a professor may see researchers collecting or analyzing data related to their project. You see now we're going a step further. Apart from reading books or reading literature or compiling a literature chapter or preparing a proposal, there is an additional work that we do when we go to the field. Then that also constitutes part of research. And the majority of postgraduate students go to the field to collect empirical data, which is the evidence of the study. Somebody was asking me last week the difference between research and evidence-based. Evidence-based meaning that this is data that has been collected, it has been observed and collected. So that is evidence-based, empirical data. Business and consultants research different potential solutions to remedy organizational problems such as the supply chain bottleneck or to identify customer purchase patterns. And here, remember yesterday we made reference to research and development, that organizations also conduct research in order to satisfy their customers. They want to know what their customers want. They want to identify problems that are there in the market, and then they develop correct products so that these products can satisfy the needs of the customers, and they themselves can continue to operate in the business. Because if you are in a business, you need to sell goods and you sell to customers. So you do research to ensure that you are not thrown out of the market. So that also constitutes research, and it can be done by institutions or businesses. However, none of the above can be considered scientific research unless, now, these are the conditions. It can be research, but it won't be scientific, according to the author, if it does not comply with these two conditions, that it contributes to a body of science and it follows the scientific method. Today, I think I made reference to the scientific method yesterday. We might have not looked at the different stages that were there. Oh, I think we might have also touched and read them. let us now check if any of the above satisfies these two criteria. We are saying the above is the search in the internet, is the research that is conducted by the business, and is the search that happens in the library physically that I did in the past, and any other online work, anything that happens there. But the polls, is it also scientific? Does it satisfy? Does the polls investigating, finding out the polls in America in terms of a political party or a specific politician, does it contribute to the body of science, or does it follow the scientific method? Then that one you can answer when we then define what research should be, its nature. When we look at its nature and we define it, then we would be able to see if the previous approaches into research can be deemed to be scientific research. The National School of Government defines research as a systematic process of inquiry aimed at obtaining accurate answers to significant and pertinent questions to increase the sum of human knowledge. There is something that has to be systematic, then that is research. An inquiry aimed at obtaining accurate answers. So research must be aiming at obtaining accurate answers, and it must then answer specific questions. Then it increases the sum of human knowledge. And when we conduct research, we are also required to prove and to demonstrate that the type of research that we want to conduct is going to contribute into the body of knowledge. And this is what you need to demonstrate even at the stage of preparing a proposal. So when we approve your proposal, as study leaders or professors, you need to make a specific contribution. So you are guided. Now, research can also be defined as the process in which scientific methods are harnessed. Now, then it is methodological. In other words, other people say that it should be methodical. So here we say scientific methods should be harnessed in order to discover and increase knowledge. So when you increase knowledge, it's the same as contributing to the body of knowledge, more or less what we said in the previous statement. This is from the National School of Government. There might be other definitions, or other authors might define this differently, but the keywords are there: accurate answers, pertinent questions, the body of knowledge, methods, and the discovery and increase body of knowledge. All of those are what should be important if you are undertaking an inquiry. So if you are addressing those key concepts in those keywords, this is what the author thinks you would be conducting scientific research. In science, research is the diligent, systematic. Here is another author, Naido, 2011. He says research is he or she says research is the diligent, systematic inquiry into nature and society of to validate and refine existing knowledge and to generate new knowledge. Now, generation of new knowledge, additional into the body of knowledge. But Naido goes further, indicates that we don't only generate new knowledge, but we validate and refine existing knowledge. Later on, as we continue, colleagues, we are going to focus on theoretical frameworks and conceptual frameworks. There you would find that we say we can validate existing theories, or we can contribute to the existing theories, or we can revise the existing theory. So this is the role of a scientific inquiry. So it can validate existing theory, it can refine existing theory. This is why they refer to validation and refining of existing knowledge. So your theories come from existing knowledge. It's part and parcel of the body of knowledge. That is what research does. Now, what are the goals of research? The primary goal of research is to acquire new knowledge. We've already said it there in the definition. You see now, this person who's writing and this person who's saying this is the University of Central Arkansas. University of Central Arkansas, undated there, thinks that the primary goal of research is to acquire new knowledge. So they support the definition of research there. Therefore, it means more or less in line with the National School of Government and the other author, and Naido, who we have heard his statements in the previous slide. In research, we are interested in making new observations, verifying prior observation. You see now, these things are actually repetitive, and these people are supportive. These statements are supportive of each other. We made new observations, additional to body of knowledge by discovering new knowledge. Okay, verifying prior observations, validating existing knowledge. Discovering laws. You see, the laws are there, and you see in some of the theories you've got principles. The principles are more or less like laws, and if they are old, we validate them. We can test. When we test a theory, then we eventually validate the principles, and or we can discover new principles, then we can add to improve on the existing theory, deriving predictions and improving our understanding. And yesterday we spoke about the hypothesis that a hypothesis is there to predict future outcomes. And this is an educational guess to predict that the behavior of a specific aspect would affect the phenomenon under investigation. Therefore, it would result into 1, 2, 3. That is a prediction. And when we conduct research, actually, we then test the hypothesis. We can either confirm it or not confirm it. And then we improve our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. And I want to tell you, colleagues, that the reason why we conduct research is merely because we are so selfish as human beings. And you can take me on this. You can take me up on this. I say we are so selfish because we merely conduct research for the purpose of advancing human interest. Whether you pretend that you're looking, you want to protect the wild animals, you want to protect the natural environment. Why would you care about the natural environment? It's because you live there and you are aware that if there is no water there, you will die, you will starve. And if there are no animals, you won't have food to eat, and you won't have plants to eat if plants are not there. So we're very selfish. And this is the reason why the author says we want to understand ourselves and the world around us. So the environment is the world around us. For what purpose? To ensure our sustainability and our continued survival as a human species. We are very dangerous, but we also can take care of other creatures that God has given to us. We are the custodians. To this end, colleagues, we are interested in improving theories that explain and predict behavior. You see? And developing better analytical and measurement methods and providing a broader database. That is what we do in research. And this is still the University of Central Arkansas. We make observations with the ultimate goal to describe, explain, predict, and control. And later on, we will be able to look into these concepts. I was interested looking at them now and selecting one of the example which I will share with you in the forthcoming slides. These are the goals, colleagues. We make observations with the ultimate goal to describe the goals. Our goals, we want to describe, we want to explain, we want to predict, and eventually control. And control can even include management. You will be able to see this one in forthcoming slides. And let's just look at this goal of describing. The first and the most basic goal of research is to describe. And what is to describe? This goal is achieved by making a careful observation. You don't describe if you don't observe. You observe things, you see them, then you say, what are they? What are we studying? Eh? We must know the what of what we are studying. So we can only do that when we observe. When we observe, we deduce, we make deduction, see it. Oh, this is a research model. Oh, this is a research workshop. This is a research engagement workshop. That is the what. When we've observed, we've seen the invitation. Oh, the invitation is for the UNISA postgraduate academic workshop. Trying to make explanations. It is important to give an accurate description, identifying the factors. So in describing, then we identify the factors and conditions that exist and the extent to which they exist. Eh? We need to identify them. Remember, we said we observe. When we observe, then we identify. When we are checking what is there, I identify all their factors and conditions. Where are they? They are existing. They are found in that very phenomenon or in that environment, and the extent to which they exist. What is there? It is the UNISA postgraduate students that are attending, that are participating in the workshop. Then I've said the what. And how many are they? Last week there were 267. So the extent to which they attended the workshop, the extent to which they existed in that very workshop. So there were many. I said this is a very high figure that I've never, it is one of the highest figures that I have ever experienced in the workshops. And so I am so glad. I wish today we are even 300. So we would have observed, then identified the conditions and the factors, as well as the extent to which they exist. But as the description becomes more complete, as we identify more factors or conditions affecting the event we are studying, the better our understanding of the event becomes. And remember, colleagues, what is the purpose and what is the goal of conducting research? And as I just said, we are very, very selfish, because we said we want to understand the world behind us and we want to understand ourselves. There it says the better we understand our event, the better of understanding of the event becomes. Mostly descriptions are found in literature. This is the University of Arkansas again. You must remember, colleagues, there is nothing that you will do in your research project or in your research journey if you don't study. And this is the reason why we always emphasize studies, consultation, research, and research, and research. And research is about discovery, and it has been described. It is indicated to us with the goals, but you can only describe anything in your research journey if you use literature, because here we are describing, we are looking at the goals. And the University of Central Arkansas has described what a description is. It's describing the goals for us. So in other words, I have consulted literature. So we cannot overemphasize the need to use literature. So literature is everywhere in every stage of conducting research. But the second goal of research is to explain. And the second goal is that one of explanation. Then we do it to understand the event that we are studying. We must also identify conditions in which they operate. This goal involves determining the causes or event or behavior to occur. What causes something? What causes the behavior? What effects does a specific aspect have on another one? And I've got a text here, which I want you to look at, because I'm going to ask you questions, colleagues. It does have a description and it does have an explanation. And now my challenge is, I said I will pause and give you an opportunity to talk. And I'm going to pause now and give you an opportunity to talk. But let me advise you what I want to do. I want you to do on this slide. Please identify for me anything that is making a description and anything that is making an explanation. And if you have forgotten what a description is, I'll remind you. I'll go back and show you what a description is. And if you've forgotten what an explanation is, I'll also take you back there. But all of these two concepts happen in research, and it is there to make us understand the world around us. So we've got two paragraphs here, and they are from Siles et al. This is what I researched this morning, and I wanted to use it as an example here to show that this man who was conducting research, he was talking about rainfall, and this man, then he has to describe, and this man has to explain the events. Oh, I'm now opening the, I'm spilling the bills. I don't want to direct you to what you need to do. Please identify for me in these two texts, two paragraphs, where you can see some kind of description, and tell me what is being described. And also indicate to me where is that phenomenon being explained.
When I look at these two, the first one, but it's a little bit confusing. I read both of them, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure. The first one, it's describing the process of rainfall, but it's just for me, I label it as explanation. The second one, it's describing in detail how clouds are formed, going into details about, the atmospheric pressure, the temperatures that rise. Yeah. So the first one, for me, it's explaining what happens with rainfall. And then the second one, it's going into details, it's describing.
Thank you very much, Nomhle. Hold there, let me get a second opinion. Any other opinion? Anybody who wants to do a trial?
I don't know, I could be wrong, but I'm just taking a guess here. The first sentence or statement is that describing what is rainfall. And then from sentence number 2 all the way to the bottom is the explanation of the phenomenon of rainfall.
Okay, so we've got two comments. Nomhle.
My apologies. I think just to add on to what the previous speaker said, I'm still sticking to my answers, but what I also want to highlight is why I'm choosing the first one as an explanation. It's because here it's just giving us a synopsis in terms of why is the rainfall, how the rainfall is formed. Where the second paragraph, it goes into description, how the cloud develops, the cooling down, the dry air, the wara, the rising clouds, they become warmer. So it's actually painting a very like an imagery, a picture.
Yes. Is there anybody? We've got two opinions, and they agree to an extent, but let me leave it there. And I want to hear from you. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have said they agree.
Okay, my view is the first paragraph, the entire paragraph, it's actually a description on how rainfalls are created. They just go deep, deep into the descriptive process of how rainfall is being created. But the second part, it's actually explaining what the first paragraph is saying by how the rainfall is being created. So basically, the first paragraph is descriptive and the second paragraph is explanatory. But you could find that these two concepts of description and explanation overlap between the paragraphs. That's my view.
Okay. Oh, I like the yes, Hlongwane.
Thank you. I also just want to concur. I mean, from the previous slide that you presented, you mentioned the description is the what. In the first paragraph, I keep reading rainfall is. So it's defining what it is. And then the second paragraph is focusing now on the understanding of the what.
I would like to guess. I think both paragraphs are descriptions and explanation of the concept precipitation and rainfall. Yeah, I was saying that both paragraphs are description and explanation of one is describing and explaining rainfall. The other one is describing and explaining precipitation. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. My apologies if there are still hands. Lindola, do you still see hands there, or must we move forward, or must allow them to continue? Are there hands there? I want to come in. Do we still have hands?
Doctor, there's still
Okay.
one hand. We have Matume Ramalipe.
Okay, thank you
Okay.
for giving that
What?
opportunity.
Sorry, Mashatule Freddy. Sorry.
Thank you for giving me that opportunity. It's Matromine, I always raised a hand.
Okay, Matume, yes.
I think the first paragraph is a description, and then the second one is we explaining the point of someone. That's why there is a reference at the end of the sentence. Thank you.
Okay. Is there? Can we close? Can I come in, or do we still have a hand?
I
Okay.
think we are done. There's Blessing as well.
Blessing, let Blessing be the last one,
The last
please.
one.
Yeah, Blessing, come on, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon, Blessing.
Okay, yeah, I am here to second what the last person said because he already said my mind.
You are not Blessing. Are you Patience?
I am Blessing.
Are you Blessings? My apologies. Okay. My apologies. You can continue. I thought I know the voice from last year.
No.
Yeah, you can continue.
Oh, okay. Like I said, I'm here to second what the last speaker said. He said that the first paragraph is actually describing why the second paragraph ends, and that is why we have that reference at the end of it.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. Your contributions are valuable. Let me make my own comment. This is about whether I think you were right. It's about remember when we describe, we are actually answering the question what according to the author. So in what, let's just look at the elements that describe the what of what we are studying. So what are we studying there? We are studying weather or rainfall or precipitation. And we are trying to describe it. And if we don't answer what, then we are not describing. Whereas if we explain, then causes of the events, I think there should be how. I don't see why this person did not assist us and put a how. So how is precipitation formed? Should follow what we have observed and described. We have seen rainfall. We are saying we're talking about rainfall. What is rainfall? Then it should be description. And then how is rainfall formed? It is through the winds, it is through the conditions, it's through the heat and all those things that is now an explanation of how rainfall falls, that the droplets are formed somehow on particles suspended in the air, and it falls down, either as rain or as hail or snow or any other thing. But let me say this to you, because you are all researchers and scientists. There is no answer that was wrong from your side. And can I tell you why? You see, English, this language, I don't speak English. Now, I struggle with it. It has got this term description. It has got this term explanation. And if I think that description means explanation, or explanation means description, I can call explanation description and call description explanation. And I'm saying this so that I can mention the following. Every time when you mention something and you're making reference to your statements, and that has to be supported by literature cited, please have a motivation why you are choosing a specific standpoint. If you say this is description, then you can justify it is because it is answering that and that question. That is according to the University of Arkansas. But we didn't hear other authors who say descriptions only answers the word question. So if there's another author that thinks that description can answer to other questions, I think then it is either expanded or built on it, or we've got a different point of view. So I was not saying that the manner in which the author presented the concept's description or explanation is the only truth. So if I choose to go with description, then I will go with that one. If I want to choose to go with the explanation in trying to explain what is in here, then I will go with it and then substantiate and put the references that support my standpoint. So people can argue and argue, but you see, if you know that what you're talking, you have found it is supported by a specific author, specific reference, then you can stand by it. But thank you very much. I just wanted us to make sure that I'm not speaking alone. I noted that you were very, very active. You are a serious class. Thank you very much. So I want us to move from here and come to prediction, that the other goal is to predict. And I will take you further. After you would have described and would have explained your weather, why would you want to describe and explain it? You also want to use the explanation and description for purposes of predicting. You want to predict weather. And why do we predict weather? Okay, or how do we predict weather? Okay, let's continue. The third goal of research is to predict. And once we have observed with some regularity that two behaviors or events are systematically related to one another, we can use that information to predict whether an event or behavior will occur in a certain situation. Then, if we know that if it is very hot and it is very hot, it is very wet, it means that water will evaporate and it will rain. Only when there is sufficient, if there is sufficient heat and the wind behaves in another way, or the evaporation happens in another way, then it assists us to predict, oh, it will rain because the environmental conditions are favorable. They are only favorable if there is rising air, which is going to be condensed. So we are trying to predict. Some have argued that predictions is the ultimate goal that science or research seeks. We must be able to know the weather pattern. The South African Weather Services have got a way in which they predict. I don't know if they are using artificial intelligence or any other technology, but they study weather patterns, the behavior of the environmental conditions in the space to predict, oh, there will be thunderstorm in KwaZulu-Natal, there will be some thunder showers in Gauteng, it will be very hot in the Limpopo. So this is based on what they've studied. So they've researched and then they predict what weather we will experience tomorrow or today. To a degree, we know that we understand an event when we can predict the occurrence of that event. So, because in the past we did study, you see, these people conduct experiments or they do investigations or observe, which is what we are doing, which we're studying. They use research. They've got their own research approaches, which they follow, and they've made specific conclusions and deductions. So they know that if the wind behaves like this, or if it is like this, it means it will rain or it will not rain. Okay, that is what is meant by prediction. Now, and there is control. After we've predicted, say for instance, we predict that in KwaZulu-Natal there will be floods, or we predict that in Gauteng there will be floods. Now, I always see something from the internet or from the Google saying that, oh, there is a prediction that Gauteng will experience high floods. Now they are predicting there's an experience that Gauteng will be very cold. It will be below 0. So they've studied the weather pattern. And now, why do they study it? Why do they predict it? The last one is that they must control, if they are able to control or to manage the weather pattern, the weather, then they can do it. But unfortunately, sometimes it is not possible to actually control the weather, the behavior of the environment in terms of bringing hazardous conditions, whether it is flood, whether it is drought, whether it is cold. You cannot stop cold that is coming to Gauteng. And what do? You manage it. And what does management mean? It might mean buying the heater. It might mean buying clothes, because when I go to work, maybe sometimes I will not be able to carry my heater with, or buying a vehicle which is air condition fitted. That is preparedness and that is readiness. In South Africa, I think somewhere, or even internationally, globally, you have got what they are considering as a serious environmental event, climate change. And they can predict that this will happen. But what should they do then? Then they request government departments, they request institutions and organizations to have a readiness plan, and a management plan, a risk management plan that includes the management of weather. It is very risky to drive while we have got flooded roads. And what do? Then we issue a warning a day before. Please, those people that will be driving low-lying areas, please avoid bridges, avoid something and that and that and that and that. And then when we know that, then we are actually responding and managing what we come across. We cannot stop the flood. We know we cannot stop the cold, but we can be prepared. So there should be plans in the municipality, in different government departments, and in individual homesteads. We need to roof our structures, our houses. Otherwise, there will be heat. Otherwise, there will be rain coming in, water coming into our houses. So that is the reason why we've got roofs on top of our structures. And it is because we know that sometimes it will rain. So even if you haven't made research, you know that it rains annually, whether it is high rainfall or low rainfall. So in research, they are saying these goals are there. And ultimately, the important one is that one of control, because it makes sure that you minimize the impact that is brought in by the weather. So this is just an example of the goals of research and how they impact us and how we respond to them.
You are talking about scientific research. Give me an example whereby we talk about social science, social research. You see how can you just go back on that slide about control? Yes. They notice that floods would be coming. Therefore, as residents, we make sure that our roof is proper. They even give warnings, so forth. But now, can you please use this goal of control within social
sciences
science research. For example, we are going to have elections.
Yes.
They always have predictions, okay, that applies as a goal. Now, give me an example of control in relation to already I've chosen elections. Can you give me an example of the goal of control within a social science research project?
Let me start by politics, ne? Then I'll do the one that I was thinking before you could touch politics. You remember when in last year when there were polls, we were electing, and we had different polling stations, and there we could see some results being predicted, because they would say, oh, the voting station number 5 have finished the counting, and there you could see, oh, EFF is leading in Gauteng. Oh, MK is leading in KwaZulu-Natal. Ne? Then people are predicting. This is not scientific, by the way. It was political. I don't know if it has followed the correct scientific systematic systems. But I want to show you where this prediction can come. Oh, we predict that MK can do well in KZN. Oh, we predict that EFF can do well in Gauteng. Then we start thinking, if we are ANC and we are in charge of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, then we predict, hey, if these guys overtake the ANC in KZN, which was the stronghold of ANC, then the ANC people must start thinking, what will become of the ANC people there? What will we do? Oh, maybe the better thing to control it is to ask for coalition. Or is for us to become an opposition. So they're predicting, if we cannot just go out of politics. Sometimes if MK gets 45%, we get 20% or 15%. We can merge with ANC and Inkatha Freedom Party. Can merge, can do establish a coalition government. Then they can become a strong opposition. Or even today, you are aware that MK is not leading KZN now. It's led by Inkatha Freedom Party. Ne? You see, this is the outcomes of the elections. But people had started to predict what would happen when they see the polls coming. Ne? And then they need to position themselves. What will we do if these results become a reality? So in South Africa, and let me say in KZN, MK could have even become the ruling party, the lead. You see, the one that has constituted a provincial government. They did not do it. I don't know. I'm not very good at politics, but you could see that the outcomes of the results forced people to actually put control mechanism in place. And by the way, when MK did not form a government there, then they must then control it. What do? They become an opposition. You see now.
I hear you, Prof. Let me.
But the one that.
Please, Prof. Let me interject a bit so that I get the full answer. Now, what do you call this phenomenon whereby these people thought they were controlling, but the form of control that they exercise did not go according to how they, expected? Is there a word that you called a failed control? Particularly in social science, because in physical science, it's more technical and accurate. But then, as the example that you gave, Doctor, you say they had thought maybe they could be the opposition or the ruling party, but they might have chosen the incorrect, or rather a control measure that is not, good for them. Is there a word?
No, you say no. Okay. You must remember, social science is dynamic, or society is dynamic. What you are seeing in KZN, you must remember, after 5 years they're going for elections, ne? And make no mistake, this MK party that I'm talking about now, I have heard on several occasions that they've taken ward number what, which used to be Inkatha stronghold. They've taken ward number what, which used to be ANC stronghold. But they're not in they're not leading the government. What does it mean? They've positioned themselves, they're working very hard. They're taking over some of the strongholds. It means they're even becoming more stronger. So what do you expect in the next election? So you see, I'm predicting now. And this is not a good example, by the way, because everything that I'm saying here cannot be taken as the truth. It's just an example of how people can be prepared and how they can control the situation. I wanted to set a very good example for you, apart from politics, because politics is not a good, not everything would be true when you speak about politics. I'll show you something about Donald Trump, USA and South Africa later on in the slides, and you will see that politics is not a good example. But I have a good example for you. It's when you know that crime is rife in South Africa, and you predict that if you don't lock your house, it will be broken. And you predict that if you don't stay in an A state, the authorities will come and rob you in the house and so on. Then you have predicted that. Then what is the management strategy? You go and stay in an E state. In any state, you have got a vehicle that is roaming day and night every time, and you've got electric fence, and you've got cameras that are installed there, so that if a authority comes in there, he is apprehended. That one is a good example because I know what I'm talking. I've seen and I've experienced. It's a better example than that one of a political party. So these things are there. The examples. I think the way in which I've presented these slides might have been borrowed from natural sciences, but these concepts are more or less there in social sciences. And we are starting now. We also want to understand what is information and what is knowledge, because we have never made reference to information. We have been making reference to knowledge. But do we know what knowledge is? And do we know what is the difference between knowledge and information? Now, let us define what information is and what knowledge is. Information may be defined as accessible facts or data. Colleagues, information is not knowledge. You see, we have agreed that knowledge is acquired through a scientific and systematic process, and that knowledge, the acquisition of knowledge needs to comply with specific outcomes. We have mentioned them. They are the two that I've just forgot them. But if they are not there in their absence, knowledge is not there. So we will continue to explore to see how knowledge is acquired. But knowledge derives from the coherent organization and interpretation of information within a system of ideas, explanatory or theoretical frameworks. Let me repeat it. It derives from the coherent organization and interpretation of information within a system of ideas. That is why we said research or scientific knowledge has to do with systematic. It has to be to follow a system, a procedure, step by step, and we have made reference to this on Tuesday. So if there is no system subjected to if the acquisition is not subjected to a system, therefore the authors don't believe that knowledge will be available and you would have knowledge as the results. I make my own statements here. I said, whereas information may be stand-alone or single concept, knowledge requires the presence of at least two concepts. And I comment, I say, raw data can be perceived facts, but analyzed data can eventually be knowledge. And we know that when we've got data that is analyzed, it means it has been acquired through a systematic process to an extent of analyzing the data. It has been collected, it has been analyzed, it has been interpreted, it has been analyzed. And there has been a definition of problem, there's a purpose statement, and there's the topic that is there. All those are components that follow a systematic process. But if you just collect data and it is not analyzed, therefore it means that that cannot constitute knowledge. It is information, by the way, but it does not qualify to be knowledge. But before defining research, now we want to now understand what research is. Now, before defining research, we need to have a broader definition of scientific knowledge itself.
On the previous slide, Doctor, there is an aspect of concept. Kindly just elaborate on the aspect of concept in that where you're saying information can stand alone, but where the issue of knowledge has to do with the presence of two concepts. What are these two concepts? Can you just maybe give clarity on that?
Okay. I don't remember why I wrote this statement, but let me try and gather myself. You see, I need an example, a living example. Okay, let's talk about Donald Trump and President Cyril Ramaphosa. They are meeting now. You know, the bone of contention that makes them meet is that assertion that there is white genocide in South Africa. That somebody can collect that data. Oh no, actually cannot collect that data. That can be information. Yes, it is information that was conveyed to the USA by some individuals. I don't know if they are blacks or whites or were black and white, but there is a perception which they created to the USA president that there is white genocide in South Africa. That is information. You accept that is information.
Yes,
it is the concept of genocide. Yeah,
absolutely.
They say it is genocide, but it is not knowledge. It is information.
Yes.
But say, for instance, one of you Fezile, you go and collect data in South Africa, and that data you collect and read books, you interpret and you analyze. Analysis is a concept. Interpretation is a concept. Then you reach on the conclusion. No, there's no white genocide in South Africa. 3 concepts. This is the context within which I thought I wrote to this. And I think at the back of my mind, I thought, no, with the information, you don't have the logical steps of conducting research. You can just pick up a single statement and say, there is white genocide in South Africa. But test this one. A person can go and test. I tell you that if Donald Trump is clever, and I'm not saying he's not clever, he is a clever old man, but if he's clever, he can commission a study. He can say, Elon Musk, go commission a study for me, send somebody. Then Elon Musk just issues $1 million and sends some troops here to come and investigate. I tell you, if those people are going to speak the truth, they're going to find that there is no white genocide in South Africa yet. And that information can be validated. And if they want to publish it and they take it to one of the periodicals or the journal, then the journal will have to peer review that one. Say, yes, this is validated information. And this information has actually followed all the correct steps. There has been literature that has been conducted, data that has been collected, it has been interpreted, and then conclusions have been drawn. So there were a number of concepts.
So basically, just to confirm, is that the first part, which is the first concept, would be the data compilation. It stands alone. It's just the data that is available. The second concept then goes into the stage of substantiation and validation types of things.
Analysis.
Yeah. That
analysis
becomes now the next concept. That's what you are referring to. Okay.
I'm saying that.
Yes. I'm understanding.
I'm saying that. Yes, I'm saying that.
Okay.
And then I want us to continue. I've got a beautiful example about the politics of genocide in South Africa. I wish we don't finish before I reach that slide. The key features of scientific knowledge. And what you are going to see is that these features are what characterize scientific knowledge. And if these features are not there, then in other words, the author is saying, then you cannot claim that the knowledge is scientific. Then you might be having information. So let's go through them. Science is based on the collective. You see, now I'm repeating what Fezile, what I referred to. Science is based on the collective, validated experience of the members of the scientific community, rather than on the individual experiences and observations of any single person alone. You see, a person who claims, who takes the white genocide aspects to Donald Trump might have been one person or if one group, and it has not been validated. Now, there is what we refer to as peer review in the scientific community. That is when you want your article to be published, or no, let's talk about the thesis that is to be produced at the end of the day. When you have conducted research and you have compiled the final document, you are submitting it for examination, and it must go for external examination. It first goes to your there's a co-supervisor and your supervisor, who is the main study leader, or maybe in the department there are other people that must also see and validate or pass the report. But over and above this, that for you to be awarded an M degree or a PhD, they've got an external examiner. And there sometimes you might find that your report is sent to more or less 3 reviewers. Those people are going to validate he has followed correct methods. He demonstrates expertise in conducting research. He understands the concept of genocide. He has collected empirical data. He didn't just stack things from his head. And this evidence here. This is evidence-based research. And there they say, no, this guy, at least we can pass him. Let him just revise the methodology, because he did not explain his methodology correctly, or his explanation is not very, very clear. Or let him add this, because he has collected data, he has triangulated, but he only mentioned one of the methods that he has used. Let him also mention the other one. Then they return it back. And when the university awards a degree, it means it has been peer reviewed. And colleagues, when you go to the journals, you find that there is an editorial board. There you've got a group of people that look at various sections of the article that is to be published, the methodology, the data itself, the discussion, the conclusions, and everything, the analysis. And people have got different inputs that they have got to make. So if it qualifies with the journal's criteria, you see, if the journal is about nursing science or health sciences, then that journal does have its own criteria, and it has got its own requirements that you have to follow. Then it is only going to be published if it complies. But if it does not comply, what they do, they also, again, in the way of thesis, they advise, please go and revise this, please go and add this one. And that is what we refer to as peer review. So it is a collective decision that the article is scientific. It is validated. It has been validated by a number of people from the scientific community, and they should be belonging to the same discipline. I've over-explained this one. Let's go to the second feature now. Scientific knowledge is the outcome of rigorous, methodical and systematic inquiry, as opposed to haphazard way in which ordinary knowledge is acquired. Ordinary knowledge of the genocide acquired by the President of the United States did not go, it was not rigorous, it was not methodical, and it was not systematic. It was not collected, and it is not, you see, does not meet this criteria. Neither does it meet, the genocide thing does not meet the first criteria. It also does not meet the third one. Science rejects the value and importance of a personal authority. The only authority that is accepted is the authority of evidence. You know, what is that group of there is a group here, AfriForum. That is a group. It can be seen as an authority or a group that stands and protects the rights of the minority. I don't know how it calls itself. It can advocate genocide to the Americans there. So that authority is not going to be allowed, because it's going to be seen as personal, because it is not evidence-based. I will show you a reaction based on what is expiring, based on the visit and the interview that we saw yesterday in the United States. I will show you an article, sorry, a statement that was reacting, indicating that there is no evidence. There is no, you see, I'll show you that one. So here, there is no evidence. So that was not the genocide of the whites. Rhetoric is not an evidence-based finding. Therefore, it does not constitute knowledge. It's not scientific. Science is not based on taking second-hand sources at face value, but it is inherently skeptical and doubtful. You see, science, if I were Donald Trump, I would then subject the information that I get from AfriForum to investigation and to interrogation. I should be skeptical. Are these whites speaking the truth? Do they run from South Africa? Indeed, because there is farm killings. You know, yesterday in the debates, what I've had is that actually the statistics shows that there is more farm workers killing than farmers themselves killed in South Africa, in the South African farms. It's not actually the farm owners that are being killed. It's actually the farm workers. And most of the farm workers are blacks. Therefore, they should be saying there is black genocide. You see, so Donald Trump and anybody else, your Elon Musk, did not subject this to an inquiry. And they were not doubtful. I don't know if they've got an ulterior motive or agenda. I'm saying it objectively, yeah. And I can't tell you that they are I just say if there is evidence that proves the genocide, then I was going to be convinced myself. But because it's not there, then I call it as second-hand source information. That has to do with doubt that should persist in the minds of the President of the United States. Because
Doctor,
science, yes.
So I suppose in that context, then one would think that there would be a political research study of why would one want to think like that, instead of taking a scientific research that has been proven to say that there is a white genocide, so to speak. But because that they don't want, that they choose to take a decision from information, not from proven knowledge, then there's supposed to be a political agenda. Or rather, I should not say that. Maybe there should be a research study that wants to find out why would a political leader think that way.
Colleagues, I want to tell you one thing. I think the globe, the world now, should understand Donald Trump. I understand Donald Trump. I stay in South Africa. I didn't read a lot about him, but I just see what he does and I just hear what he has done. And I just see his behavior on TV and everywhere, in everything that he tweets, that he talks, and everything, that this man can say anything that he wants. So, by the way, if you say that, then the comments from a lot of political analysts, yesterday there was somebody from the University of, was it Stellenbosch? Yeah, there was a professor there and another doctor from another university, where that is Vets. Then this professor is a white professor. He says, no, why is Donald Trump so interested in South Africa? Because there's more than, how many countries are there on Earth? I just forgot. And we are the 48th country in terms of development. The 48th developing state. But people are asking, why is Donald Trump so interested in South Africa rather than being interested in other countries? So people are thinking there is something behind this. It's not only a matter of genocide. It might be that this white genocide aspect is actually it's a pathway. It's using it as to achieve ulterior motives. I'm not sure. The politicians can tell you. But if you conduct, I think there are people who are going to conduct studies, and political students can conduct this, and it can be a very good study. Although they will not be told everything, what is behind this, but they can do analysis by collecting data and interviewing people and reading other studies. And political studies might even assist them. They refer to a conspiracy theory. Maybe it is a conspiracy theory that they have to test why Donald Trump is using this in the context of the conspiracy theory. Now we're just concluding on those features. Ne? Now there are key words that are there, which are 4 that characterize scientific research. So it's our scientific knowledge. It is collaborative. We've heard that it should be collaborative. This is the reason why there is peer reviewing. It must be rigorous and methodical. So that is why we've got systematic execution of the project in order to come to scientific knowledge. And evidence-based, there has to be an empirical data that has been observed and has been collected. All these 4 things are criteria with which a scientific knowledge should comply with. If this is absent, we are told, in other words, the information is not scientific knowledge. It is still information, but not scientific knowledge. Therefore, it should not be. We should not be forced to agree and to believe it because it does not comply with the criteria, at least according to the scientists and scientific approach, and according to this offer. Social scientists, as opposed to natural and health scientists, they conduct research in order to seek answers and understand the social world, not the natural world, the social world. And now the social world comprises social institutions and organizations. They comprise social beings, which are humans, institutions and organizations. They comprise actions and events, as well as interventions and cultural products of human endeavor. This is what is in the social world. And when we study as social students or qualitative students, we are likely to look at this as part of the unit of analysis. The notion of the social world is not unproblematic, and many debates in social science philosophy have devoted to discussion between various schools of thought, positivism and modernism, about the interpretations of this term. Later on in our workshops, we'll focus on the research approach, the research designs. Then there we will engage on the concept of paradigm. These paradigms are school of thoughts, and they indicate and display to us the history and the worldview from which we approach research. And therefore, here we are told that people approach social research differently. The positivists, for an example, are those who adopt principles from natural sciences, and they believe on rigidity, not on flexibility. In other words, they believe that information is there, and it should be found as it is there. But you see, the other social scientists, such as the postmodernisms, the people that believe on this paradigm believe that social world is constructed, and therefore knowledge can be constructed. In that research is value imbued, in that the researcher himself has got to interact with the context within which research takes place, and he interacts with the participants to the research. So he influences the research, he is influenced by the research. The participant himself is also influenced, and he is influenced. He also influences the research process. Therefore, the product knowledge that is scientifically collected is still accepted as knowledge, and it is the product of the interaction between the researcher and the study context, as well as the research participants. That is the postmodernism ones. And most of the social scientists might lean towards that one, that there is flexibility in research, just because human beings are dynamics and we change. Things are not rigid there, because today I can be a drunkard, but tomorrow I'm a teetotaler. Today, I'm a murderer, but you take me to Robben Island prison, I go and change, I study even history, and I even obtain my PhD before I come out. When I come out of jail, I become a lawyer who represents people who are killing other people. So I have repented. So social world is dynamic and it changes. It cannot be taken as static. So we cannot have knowledge there made for us or readily available for us. We create knowledge and we create life. That is what the postmodernism believers believe on. Many of these debates arose because of the recognition that social world, the world of human beings and their actions, is fundamentally different from the natural and material world. You must remember, a stone is there, it's created by God, eh? You put a stone in front of your house today. Tomorrow when you go there, you find the stone is there. If the stone has not been stolen, the stone is still the same stone. Eh? But you take a rat and put it in front of your door when you sleep. Tomorrow morning when you go out and open the door, the rat is not there. Or the human being is not there who has been seated there. So the social world is like that. It changes. The social world is a world constituted through human meanings and significant. The meaning that I attach to the world and to the context, it actually is an explanation of how I interact, and it will determine. Then is a determinant of how I engage and interact with the social world. So, social world is inherently context specific and historical, because history cannot be thrown away, because everybody has got a history, and that history is the one that actually dictates how you're going to conduct research. If I'm a natural scientist like me, I like animals, I like soil, and in most instances when I conducted research, I conducted it on the natural environment, on animals, on plants, on nature, on water, on soil. You see, because of my history of being a natural scientist. So is a social scientist. You want to study human beings. You want to study social processes because you have studied sociology and you have studied history, you have studied law and all those things that pertain to the social world. All these dimensions of the social world pose great challenges to the social researcher, not least in terms of methodological considerations. You see, social science and natural science do differ. And people that conduct quantitative research and people that conduct social research, they differ in their approaches and in their preferences. And by the way, I've experienced that social science is more complex than natural science. And I'm not saying this is the truth. Just because a human being changes and that the social life is more dynamic than the natural life, I find it the social life much more complicated. That is the reason why a person can depart from South Africa and go to the United States and go and kill a human being. But a snake, which everyone hates, will never fly, will never board a flight to go and kill somebody in the United States. And you go to the hospitals, how many people have been killed by human beings versus how many people have been killed by snakes in South Africa? You see, the people that have been killed by us human beings are more than the people that have been beaten by snakes. That statistic I did not go and investigate, but I'm telling you because I'm a natural scientist and I'm a human being. A basic point now we're starting to delve into scientific research. A basic point of departure, all scientific research conforms to a basic logic or structure. This is what we spoke about, a stage by stage methodological and systematic type of approach, and that collaborative. Those keywords that we spoke about, the four, irrespective of the kind of the study and independent of the methodology used, all empirical conform to this logic. And this logic is PRODREC. And here, this abbreviation is acronym is referred to as research problem is P, research design is D, empirical evidence is E, and conclusion. So if you don't have these, then sometimes your research products would not be taken as scientific. And this is how it happens. Now here, the way I've written these slides is to show that you start from stage one, phase one. You must define the problem, or you must have the question first before you go to phase two, where you design your research. And all these things, if you don't understand, when you start doing your research proposal, you will understand. But people that are doing masters, people that are doing honors, sorry, PhD, already have mastered this and they understand these concepts. And phase three, research process. And this is when you go to the field. And phase four, writing the thesis or the report. And you cannot, I must emphasize, you cannot go to thesis writing before you have got a research problem. You cannot go to research process before you go to a research problem or research question. This logic is actually what is meant by methodological or systematic. Methodological or methodical means a method that is followed, but systematic, then the stages following each other systematically, logically. That is English, and I think to me it means that. And we want to unpack those different stages. In terms of the problem, this includes selecting a topic for research. And the reason why I put provisional there, that is my own thought, it's not from the author. Because when I read a lot of literature, literature tells me that your research topic, particularly if you're doing qualitative research, social science research, your topic would mostly be provisional. You have a topic that you want to investigate before you can even undertake literature review. But as you go into studying, you read more literature, then what you think you want to study becomes more clearer. You find, no, but the wording is not correct here, because that is not what I want to investigate. Oh, yes, or I must add this, because this, I will not achieve my objectives if I don't add this statement, or if I don't phrase it like this. So the more you understand the problem, the more the topic is refined. So your topic is provisional until you finish your studies. Because even when you collect data and you start analyzing, you might find that important information emerges that challenges the way in which you have phrased the research topic. And then you go back iteratively to go and revise and go forward. If you find another challenge, you go back and revise until the last day of the last chapter, when you write conclusion and then go back and write your introduction. So that is the reason why I've put provisional there. But you must also identify a problem. Colleagues, there is something that I want to mention here, even before I can go down. There is a presentation which I'm going to do to you in future workshops that has to go with streamlining or aligning the stages of the research project. And I'm saying it that because your topic should be, rather your problem and topic should speak to each other. So you identify a problem as the next stage from identifying a problem, a topic. And you should see consistency, that the problem is actually indicating that, oh, in this topic, the problem is this and that and that and that. Then you formulate the research problem. You have identified it, then you formulate, then you must write it down, in other words. Then acquiring knowledge on current theories and research in the form of a literature review. Then you do literature review. And at M level and at PhD level, then there is a recommendation that you either use a conceptual framework or a theoretical framework. You test the existing theory, and there you can confirm it or you can revise it. Or you use a conceptual framework, you can, which will eventually might lead to the emergence of a new theory. This is what must happen. And acquiring knowledge on current theories means that you're studying literature. In most instances, this goes as part and parcel of literature review in chapter 2 or chapter 3. If your chapter 2 is not very long, then it will also include your theoretical framework or your conceptual framework. But if it is too long, then you can also dedicate chapter 3 on the conceptual framework or the theoretical framework. Logically so. You also, again, under the problem, you recognize the gaps in existing knowledge. And this is the reason for the study, because if there is no gap that your study is going to close, there is no reason why you should conduct the study. You must first identify the gap that you are going to close. And if you do so, indeed, you are demonstrating that you are going with study to contribute to the body of knowledge, scientifically so, and scientific knowledge, the one that we're debating about here. You must explore areas of uncertainty, so it also gives you an opportunity. This is uncertain, and I'm going to explore and make sure that I clarify the areas that are not certain. You assess the significance of of addressing these gaps within a specific field of study, and consider practical implications. Specify an issue to study. You see, develop a justification for studying. You know, colleagues, in your study, you've got a section which refers to significance of the study, or in some I've seen justification for the study. Then you need to demonstrate how will this study actually contribute to the body of knowledge in terms of the stakeholders, which is the research community within your discipline. And then the end users, the people, is it the policy makers? How is it going to contribute to policy making? And again, how is it going to contribute to the actual implementation? If it is under the Department of Health, how is the policy on COVID going to be improved or to be shaped or to be revised or whatever in terms of your studies? And is your research contributing? Is it going to be published in an article or in a journal? Do you contribute to earlier studies, or you advance it, or you answer some questions that have not been answered scientifically in your discipline, in the health professional, for an example? And the end user, how will it impact the end user? The people, the health professionals, the doctors, the nurses, the people that are working in the hospitals, how do they benefit from that study? This is the justification. And this is the significance of your study. That is important. It should be there. And in terms of the design, this includes the choice of a particular kind of study or a research design. And let me say this, because this is going to be repeated time and again, because research is reiterative. We are left with 9 minutes to the end. Hey, I will miss the Donald Trump story. I will rush to it if I don't finish. Colleagues, you need to identify a design that will assist you to respond and answer the research question. And we have said that the research question is the one that dictates the type of design that you need to use. So you've got different approaches in social science. You've got quantitative research approach. You've got a qualitative research approach. You've got a mixed research approach. All those research approaches there are specific designs that assist in giving effect to them, and as well as the methodology that must follow. So the choice of a design is also important. And the evidence includes data that is collected, the construction of the research instruments, the interview guide, and what you will collect. The actual data that is gathered and it is analyzed. Then the interpretation thereof of these results. What is the meaning of the findings? What is the meaning of the data about the white genocide in South Africa? We have found that Statistics South Africa has released data in 2023 to show that in farm killings, more blacks died than whites, or more farm workers died than farm owners. So that is evidence that we're going to use. And this is the data. That one should also be there and be available. And the conclusions are made based on the data and made based on the literature review that you have done. Let me stop here. And I'm not going to non-scientific research now, but I will go to non-scientific research when I conclude. And because I'm interested on Donald Trump and Cyril Ramaphosa, who started to meet yesterday and who are continuing to meet, and they're engaging there are other ministers and other colleagues that have accompanied our presidents and our delegation there. I will go to that one.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I just want to check here, Doc, in relation to your justification of your study, right? Because you mentioned that within your justification, you have to know what type of study is it going to be? Is it something that you want maybe published or like in a journal article or maybe an article? So how do you determine that? Let's say that maybe your topic around like the assessment maybe of educational programs when it comes to waste management practices. How do you justify that? Like, because I get that you would want to like obviously publish it, but then the target markets or the target of that research is to actually just enrich maybe just the municipal systems in terms of policy making, as well as just the environmental bodies like your NGOs in just promoting or assessing how effective their current programs have been in terms of waste management. So how do you like put that in your justification to say that the end goal of this research maybe is to be published or it's to enrich in terms of policy making?
You see what happens is now I want to show you the alignment that should be there in your research project. There is you have got study background. Sorry, introduction to study or study background. Then you've got statement of problem, and you've got a research question, and you do have a topic, remember, but you come to a section about the significance of the study or justification of the study. What you justify should be in line with what your proposed study is. Then, in other words, your topic itself would show that, okay, maybe we have never heard this topic being investigated. No, and nobody can validate this until they do research or until you prove it yourself. But under the problem statement, then you identify and indicate the problem. By the way, even under the background to the study, then you indicate the gaps that is there in the studies, in the discipline, and you would have read existing literature about the topic that you are undertaking. So no. Although this thing has been researched, it was not researched in South Africa. It was researched in India, and the Indian environment is not like the South African environment. So we wanted to test it or research it here in South Africa. And people within your discipline, they read all these articles and all these journals. And if they conduct a literature search, they will find that yours has not been actually been studied. And when you would have said, this is the gap that you want to close, then they can go up and down and looking, even your study leader, go up and down and doing literature, doing everything, and found that indeed this gap does exist. So it means the potential is there to contribute in the body of knowledge. And therefore, when you go to the significance or contribution of the study or the justification, you say it is because that gap exists and therefore this study intends to close that gap. And that is why you will contribute to the body of knowledge. And there is no journal that would not grab that because they want to say, oh, yeah, breaking ground study, let's take it. We will show that we publish articles that actually break grounds. So we're not repeating. We are doing things that have not been done by anybody. So there you convince everybody, all your clients and all your stakeholders that this is something that we want to read. And we anticipate that we're waiting for it to be published so that we can cite it accordingly as a formal article that has been published by the Journal of Health Sciences. That is how I see it.
And I wanted to find different ways in terms of how do we actually identify this knowledge gap and what can we use to make sure that we actually critically identify that there is a gap in the knowledge.
Yeah, and remember, you see, yesterday on Tuesday, I actually said some concept we will touch and we won't go deeper with them, but we will make reference to them because they are relevant to what we're doing. So there's going to be a special workshop that looks at introduction, and there the concept of a gap, literature gap, and all those things will come back. And this aspect of justification of the study is there when we do research proposal. We'll deal with it again. And again, you will find a lot of concepts that we're touching on now will come surface and again. You have got an opportunity to study them many times and engage with me on them, on my view. And if you find that there's an author that brings a different view, please bring it on here. It will improve our understanding of the concepts. And I'm going to accept it. I'm not going to throw it away. But if there are divergent understanding amongst authors, let's also accept that the researcher has got an opportunity to choose the author that he likes, and he justifies why he prefers that other one. So his line of arguments must be supporting that line of thinking of that specific author. Something to close at a big bang. If it is not a bang, then I'll look for something else. And the reason is, this is current things. The visit of the South African delegation is not yet ended. It just started. And I just want to show you that because we are researchers, we study contemporary aspects, issues that are on the go. And that is what I want to encourage from all of you. Now, we will do this by looking at something which is not scientific, and we call this non-scientific. Then we have already made reference that authority, things that are said by authorities or by an authoritative body or organization, is not scientific just because it comes from an authority. I have got two people that are renowned water professionals. There are two professors. It's Anthony Tetton. He used to work under the University of Pretoria. Sorry, he went to the University of Free State. I don't know where he is. He's a professor there. He talks a lot about water and water resource management. And Mike Muller was my DG, and now he's professor under the University of Witwatersrand. And there he is actually in the department. I don't know if it is natural sciences, but there is water there. They make statements about the status of water in South Africa. And before I can validate what they say, and I can find this scientific evidence, what they say, I'm not going to believe on the face value of it. If they say something, I'll go and give myself task. If I want to accept or reject it, I first investigate and do literature searches and consult the status. By the time sometimes 3 years ago, I was still an employee of the Department of Water and Sanitation. What they say, I could subject it internally to our processes and to our policies in the status of water governance in the country. And I could say, yes, he is speaking the truth. If he says there is a sewer which is flooding in the streets of Soweto or in the streets of Venda, then I want to validate it by making a careful check. So I would not just accept anything what they say just because they are authorities in the water sector. That is what they say about authority. So it means it would be non-scientific. Opinions of peers, if I've got a colleague who is very clever and brilliant, he is a lawyer, if he tells me things that are not proven, I'm not going to allow it. Then I will have to first investigate. You see, I want to make another example here. The statement that I've written in red here, it says age of the literature source. In 2023, when I started engaging in these workshops, some of the students said to me, we hear that we're not allowed to cite sources which are more than 3 years or 5 years. And I was baffled. I said, I don't know. But the university, they say, we are told, we are always recommended like this. Ne? But last year, what I did is to go and investigate if there is any literature that says you cannot cite old sources. Instead, I found literature which has got statistics to show you how much old literature has been cited in studies, that in recent days, the usage of old literature is actually growing more than it was some years ago. So I went even to find, and I did not find any publication on it. But when I went to APA website, American Publication Association, and you've got a citation style that belongs to that is in line with them. Then they said, no, this is a myth. Because if an old literature is available and it is relevant, it provides good information than the recent the literature. Why would you choose recent literature and leave the old literature? And my conclusion was, use literature that is relevant. Then it is a way of justifying why you are using it. And somewhere when we deal with literature, I've got a lot of information that I will tell you about this. So what I'm saying is, if a study leader or a professor or a doctor or anybody else tells me that don't use this literature because it's too old, I would not agree. But what I'm telling you is, I'm not telling you to defy guidelines and regulations from your university. Please do agree with them. If they say preferably use 5 years, they cannot put it as a law if there is no policy of the university, because that policy should be based on evidence or on evidence-based research and or on evidence-based knowledge. And if it is not there, nothing has been published about that. Any publication that I found always said you can use old. So there's nobody who can force you not to use an old one, but they can guide you. And if you can speak to them. No, show me where it is written, because here we're dealing with literature. And our evidence is the findings and the old studies that were conducted. Now, tradition is there. I belong to the Venda tradition. Mpeli belongs to Mpeli, Mtsonga or Zulu, they belong to their own tradition. And everybody has got a tradition and a culture here. Our traditions are there. So we cannot use them to actually customize knowledge to say this knowledge is scientific until we prove. That is why we test it. And I've put a statement here in red that I have, when I conducted research, I have validated indigenous knowledge and our custom in Chivenda, because the way in which I found the Venda culture protecting the natural environment and managing it, it was exactly the same way in which the conventional methods of protecting and managing the natural environments approach the natural environment. So I say yes, yeah, I've validated and I am happy. Now, about debates, let me go to Trump now. This is my last thing. Colleagues, political parties debate when polls are there, when they approach the elections. All of them are selling to us their manifestos. The EF will tell you we want to social economic transformation. We want to make sure that you are empowered economically. The DA will tell you their own manifesto. The MK will tell you radical. What is that? Radical economic transformation. All of them, they will talk their own manifestos. The ANC will also come with theirs. Then you, as an electorate, then you get confused. You don't know who to select. Do you want to put Julius Malema in? Do you want to put Steenhuisen in? Do you want to put Jacob Zuma in? You don't know. Do you want to put Cyril Ramaphosa in? You don't know, because all of them have got sweet tongues and they're selling their own manifestos. Will they implement those manifestos? Yes or no? We don't know. But what we are saying here is that the manifestos and the debates that they hold, whether they criticize or support each other in TV or in radios, sometimes, most of the things what they say is not actually scientific research. It's what they think their party will do, and it is the strategy that they use. Sometimes there is propaganda so that they can be elected and lead the government. And you see the two gentlemen there in the slides. Do you see them?
Yes, we do.
Yes,
we
yes,
do,
we
Doctor.
see them.
Yes.
Yeah, this guy, this picture was I saw it in the evening yesterday night. It's not even 24 hours ago. They were seated there. We had white South Africans and black South Africans. We've got people from the White House and people from the what is that parliament of ours in? No, not parliament. What is this building in Pretoria? The government building where these
Union
ministers have
building,
got offices.
building.
Cyril Ramaphosa is from the Union building, and Donald Trump is from the Washington DC, the White House. So these guys, all of them, the two of them, were talking about the white genocide. And I tell you the reason why they cannot agree. It is because they were not debating about what has been scientifically proven. And I've said it earlier on. I'm just saying it because I saw something as a reaction. And this is the reaction from one of the South Africans. I don't know if this is the truth, but I got it from the Google. Then it reads like this. After the meeting, Julius Malema quickly issued a response on social media. And I want you to note his statement. A group of older men meet in Washington to gossip about me. No significant amount of intelligent evidence. Do you hear that? Do you underline those two words? Intelligent evidence has been produced about white genocide. We will not agree to compromise our political principles on land expropriation without compensation to political expediency, he said. You see, he is calling it political expediency, and he uses the terminology, the concept of intelligence evidence. He says it is not there. In other words, you see, he is like you and me. We are saying we cannot agree to the white genocide unless there is scientific evidence that complies with the principles that underpin scientific research. So this is where I wanted you to bring to show you that what we're talking about is not a mere talk. It's something that is happening on earth. Because the two gentlemen are seated there, they've got followers, they debate on a subject and they do not agree because they're not debating about a scientific product. They are debating about an opinion or a statement, or they're debating about information. And we just said information which has not been validated, which did not follow the systematic process, which did not follow them, which did not comply with the methods of collecting data, there is no analysis, there is no interpretation, there is no literature review, there is no conclusion. Then, therefore, it is not truth. So they are debating around this and they do not agree. The other one wants to win, the other one wants to win. I've come to the end